rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us. You're in good voice today. Good. Good morning. Welcome. I'm Mary Lou Casadevall Keller, and I serve this congregation as Vice President of the Board of Trustees, and I'm a member of the Worship and the Music Committees and the Green Team. This is the last of our summer services. We had an all-female lineup this year, thanks to our speakers for a diverse range of topics. Next week, Reverend Jay Wolin will be back in the pulpit. Oh, thanks. No, we all miss Jay, and it's going to be wonderful to have him back. I believe he is here this week, and he'll be available after. There he is. He's in the back. See, you got applause just for your impending presence. He's here this week. He'll be available after the service for anyone who's been thinking about becoming a member and is ready to join our beloved community. You can join him in his office around 11:45 for a signing ceremony. I also want to welcome back our music director, Don Brin. From his summer vacation, I am gratefully passing the baton of booking guest musicians over to him. And I want to thank Yolanda Stevens, who's in the back, for helping me find and book outstanding talent like Fred Johnson and Sanaya Carroll, Ozanda Gray, and many other new faces. We built a diverse roster of talented local musicians, but we're always open to suggestions. So if you see someone, or you're out somewhere and you see someone you think would fit well as a guest musician in our services, please let Don know or me know, and we'll see what we can do. And welcome today to a familiar face, Ruth Danielle, the soprano soloist that I always try to sit next to when she graced our choir. We especially want to welcome any visitors, both on our campus and on live stream. We invite our visitors to participate in any of our events, which you can find listed on our website. To find out more about us and Unitarian Universalism, please consider registering on our virtual guest book on the homepage of our website, uucsarasota.com. There's a banner at the top of the page marked Welcome Visitors. If you register, we'll send you our weekly newsletter and Zoom links to attend our virtual events. If you're here in person, there's a sign-up sheet for visitors outside, and as always, we invite you to join us for coffee and conversation after the service and to see our wonderful art exhibit across the courtyard. I'd also invite you today to take a minute to stop by the Reeb Room, that's where we just had the forum, to admire the beautiful wall hangings that were donated by Rhoda Taylor here. Thank you, Rhoda, for these beautiful donations. And we did have a medical emergency today in the forum, and Barry Dyer, his family's here, is on their way. He's been taken to the hospital, and he seems like he'll be okay. His family's coming. Okay. There's a table with a blue tablecloth out in the courtyard, staffed by our membership team for any newcomers who would like to get to know more about us. And do stop by the social justice table that's in the back corner there outside to sign the petitions on reproductive rights and on clean water amendments. And you can volunteer for some local projects. On this historic news week, we've seen how important it is to stay involved in our democracy so that the arc of justice continues to bend towards truth. And members, please remember to greet our visitors after the service. If they're wearing a visitor name tag, please greet them. This afternoon, there will be an intergenerational pool party. You can see Catherine Bonner after the service for details. And next Sunday, August 13th, we'll be holding an all-church welcome back luau, potluck. So next Sunday, wear your Hawaiian prints and a lei and bring a dish to share. There will be conversation topics at each table so we can continue our congregational conversations on the important topics that are affecting us. We look forward to getting to know you. And now, Ruth Danielle and Don Brim. Wow, that was great. Thank you very much. I met Dr. Ashley Montagu in 1995, and he had a profound effect on my life. Although he was 90 years old and nearing the end of his illustrious career as a world-famous anthropologist, when he was the voice of science, reason, and love for generations, he was a wise, witty, and provocative man. He took great joy in making outrageous statements, and few groups of people were immune to his barbs. He had a soft spot for women, as would be expected from the author of The Natural Superiority of Women. And we became good friends during what he called the final chapter of his life. I consider him to be my spirit guide, and I give sermons on him to keep his valuable teachings alive. Today we'll be discussing his final book, How to Grow Young as We Age. There's some words from Ashley. Quote, "The truth about the human species is that in body, spirit, feeling, and conduct, we are designed to grow and develop in ways that empathize rather than minimize childlike traits. We are intended to remain in many ways childlike. We were never intended to grow up into the kind of adults most of us have become. Humans can revolutionize their lives and become, for the first time perhaps, the kind of creatures their heritage has prepared them to be, youthful all the days of their lives." And now we will light our chalice. Anna's going to help me. As we light our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, we're going to reflect on the words of the proposed new Article 2 value of pluralism, which is displayed on the screen. So please read with me. "We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect." And wouldn't the world be a better place if everyone lived by those words? And now for a story with our beloved Catherine Bonner.
Good morning, everyone. Today's story is Miss Tizzy by Libba Moore Gray and illustrated by Jada Rowland. Miss Tizzy always wore a purple hat with a white flower in it and high-top green tennis shoes. The neighbors thought her peculiar, but the children loved her. Miss Tizzy's house was pink, and it sat like a fat blossom right in the middle of the street that was lined with white houses and white fences and very neat flower gardens. Miss Tizzy had no fence at all, and she had flowers that grew everywhere and spilled over onto the sidewalk. Miss Tizzy let the children pick the flowers, and then she would give them clean glass jelly jars to put them in, and the children loved it. Her big yellow cat Hiram would sleep in the window box in the middle of the red geraniums, and sometimes he would climb up on Miss Tizzy's shoulders and hang there like a tired old fur piece. On Mondays, Miss Tizzy baked cookies, and she would let the neighborhood children put the raisins in and then lick the bowl while the cookies were baking. And the children loved it. And on Tuesdays, Miss Tizzy made puppets out of old socks, one for each boy and girl. They made up their own stories and they put on shows. And Miss Tizzy laughed and clapped every time, and the children loved it. On Wednesdays, Miss Tizzy played her bagpipes, and she gave the children spoons and pans and let them pretend that they were playing the drums. They'd march up and down the street with Miss Tizzy leading the way, and the children loved it. On Thursdays, Miss Tizzy gave the children clean white paper and crayons, and they drew pictures of sunshine and butterflies, and they would deliver them all over town to people who had stopped smiling and had grown too tired to come out of their homes. Hiram rode in the front of the wagon with a red ribbon around his neck, and the children loved it. On Fridays, Miss Tizzy would open up her trunk and they all played dress up. There were hats with feathers and hats with bows. There were baseball caps and straw hats, and everyone wore a hat. And Miss Tizzy would put on a lace shawl and serve pink lemonade in her best china cups, and the children loved it. On Saturdays, Miss Tizzy put roller skates on her green tennis shoes and went up and down the sidewalks, and the children came out of their white houses to make a train holding on to Miss Tizzy's long skirt. And the children made train sounds, and Miss Tizzy was the engineer, but she never scolded the children for being too loud, and the children loved it. And on Sundays, when the day was over, the children stretched out on bright quilts in Miss Tizzy's backyard, and they looked up at the stars, and the tree frogs croaked their summer sounds as Miss Tizzy sang songs about the moon, slightly off-key. The children didn't care. They loved it. But one day, Miss Tizzy took off her purple hat and laid it on the window seat. She took off her high-top green tennis shoes and placed them under her bed. Miss Tizzy lay down on her feather mattress. She was not feeling well. Hiram left his window box and curled up at her feet. The doctor came and shook his head, looking very serious. The children were sad. They did not know what to do, and they missed their grown-up friend, Miss Tizzy. Finally, they had an idea. So on Monday, they baked cookies with raisins, and they brought them to the pink house. On Tuesday, they stood in the yard and held up puppets to her window and put on a puppet show just for her. And on Wednesdays, they brought pots and pans and played a soft little drumming sound just outside her door. On Thursday, they drew pictures with orange and red crayons and put them in Miss Tizzy's mailbox. And on Friday, they put on funny hats and left a tea tray at the front door with a bowl of milk for Hiram. On Saturday, they put a brand new pair of skates in a big box with a purple ribbon on top, and they took it to Miss Tizzy. And on Sunday, when the sun went away, the children stood underneath Miss Tizzy's window, singing all the moon songs that she had taught them. Her hat glowed in the moonlight. Miss Tizzy was having a peaceful dream. But she heard the children singing, and she loved it. So this story seems like it's from a different era, but children love the same things today. I know it's shocking. As technology abounds, we have become more isolated and have less empathy. We think more of ourselves and less of others. We are losing the art of being together. So put down those screens. For thousands of years, people have lived in multi-generational communities where each age group learns from the other by being with each other. Miss Tizzy stayed young by remembering to play, to have fun, to be creative, and not to be afraid to be out there. And who helped her? The true pros, children. And what did the children learn? That adults don't have to be sticks in the muds, that life can be full of wonder at any age, and that we need to care for each other because sometimes each of us might be in need. So, I challenge you, let's reverse those trends of isolation here in our own church community by being intentional about being with children. So many families and children and youth today are under attack in our current political environment, and they need your love and care and wisdom. There can be no place of support for our younger UUs without volunteers to lead and guide them. And I'm one person. I cannot do it alone. Wait, is Catherine making a pitch for religious education teachers? Yes, I am. I need you. There's no excuses. If you're afraid that somebody might bump you and knock you down, then be with the youth. They are exciting. There's no time commitment except one Sunday a month. Find a friend. Come be a teacher buddy. All you have to do is read the lesson. Everything else is put together. It takes 30 minutes advanced prep just to read the lesson. And training is provided. We don't just throw you in there. And our children are amazing. And it's our young people that are going to keep us young. That's right. So, come sign up in the courtyard after the service. I will be right next to the refreshments, so you cannot miss me. Now I invite all our young youths to join me in the West Wing as we practice staying young. Thank you.
Thank you. Some wise words from Ashley Montagu. Though the premises may break down with age, the important thing to remember is it is the youthfulness of spirit of the person who inhabits them that is the important thing. So important, indeed, that the aging premises may need much less repair when inhabited by a spiritually young person than would otherwise be the case. The older years can be the best of all, for the wisdom and that tranquility which comes with the years is also associated with a remarkable rejuvenescence. Let's take a minute to reflect on those words, and afterward you can remain seated while we sing Spirit of Life. I met Ashley Montagu at a youth conference at the Unitarian Church in Princeton 28 years ago, when he came and spoke to a group of about 60 sleepy teenagers and adults on a Saturday morning. With his high-pitched British accented voice, he proved to be a masterful speaker, and he had us all riveted, winding his way from powerful insight to powerful insight effortlessly. I suspect he'd given versions of this talk hundreds of times, but it was the first time I'd heard his messages, and they were powerful indeed. He spoke for an hour and a half, taking questions along the way, joking with his young audience, even agreeing after lunch and leading another 90-minute workshop. Dr. Montagu was 90 years old and full of energy. I had the pleasure of sitting with him at lunch and then driving him home. My husband Dana and I lived in Delaware at the time, and we became friends and saw each other about a dozen times in the next 4 years, until Dr. Montagu passed in 1999. Dana even edited a chapter of Dr. Montagu's famous book on the fallacy of race. We continued to be friends with his dear wife, Marjorie, until she passed away in 2005. She provided me with some excellent insights on how to live with a highly intelligent man. But that's another service. Ashley Montagu was a world-renowned cultural and physical anthropologist whose influence on our lives is so pervasive we can't see it until someone points it out. He was born in 1905 in East London as Israel Ehrenberg, changing his name to Ashley Montagu as a young adult, partly to evade the rampant anti-Semitism of the 20s and 30s. He was exceptionally bright, and over the course of a long and varied career, he wrote over 60 books and edited many others. I have some of them here for you to peruse after the service. He moved to America in 1931, meeting his wife while crossing the Atlantic. She was a Methodist. Her parents were not thrilled. He has a long biography on Wikipedia if you're interested, and YouTube has some videos of him testifying before Congress on UFOs. He was a believer. And on YouTube you can watch him on the Johnny Carson show. He was a frequent guest there. Unfortunately, the videos aren't of great quality, so I'm not showing them here today. I tried that before. You could only really see him. His awards, Ashley's awards, are myriad and include the 1995 Humanist of the Year Award and the Charles Darwin Award. In 1999, he was due to get an award from the Massage Therapists of America. He wrote a book called Touching that was very widely used, and massage therapists loved him. He was really disappointed he couldn't go to that. A Japanese scholar befriended him and produced The Words of Ashley Montagu as a tribute. When I have a vexing problem, I often turn to a random page in this small book and find a helpful perspective. In the late 1930s, when Nazism was peaking, Montagu took on the racists of the world with his book, Man's Most Dangerous Myth, The Fallacy of Race, pointing out that the scientific evidence supported the fact that race has no biological basis and is largely a social construct. This made him controversial, which he liked. He stressed the importance of culture and education, of treating each other with love and affection. In the 1950s and 60s, Dr. Montagu took on the medical establishment when he supported home birthing, midwives, breastfeeding, maternity pay with leave, and an educational system that teaches children the importance of human nurturing and human development. He encouraged parents to be affectionate with their children and to love them unconditionally. These were radical thoughts at the time. Many of his books concerned children and women, including Natural Superiority of Women, where he argues that the genius of women is the, quote, the genius of women is the genius of humanity, the ability to love others more than one loves oneself. And love, humanity, is the supreme form of intelligence. Humankind must learn to understand that all other forms of intelligence must be secondary to the developed, humane, compassionate intelligence. For any form of intelligence that's not firmly implanted into a matrix of humane feeling and understanding is the most dangerous thing in the world. It is compassionate intelligence that the world will always stand in need of. It is that kind of intelligence with which women are so abundantly endowed. It is that kind of intelligence that is their destiny to teach the world. And here I am. This book was so successful that it allowed Montagu to be independent from academia, and he became a celebrity scientist like Carl Sagan, Margaret Mead, and currently Neil deGrasse Tyson. He appeared on the Johnny Carson show many times and worked with UNESCO from the United Nations on their statement on race, another controversial project that ultimately cost him his academic career. The day that I first met the renowned Dr. Montagu, he seemed to understand the crux of the dilemma that raged foremost in my 40-year-old soul at that time. How to be a good mother and still use my education and skills effectively. He convinced me that being a mother was the most important task I could ever take on, that the unconditional love that a mother is uniquely equipped to share with her children is the salvation of humanity and the genius of women. What makes women naturally superior to men, according to Dr. Montagu, is our compassionate intelligence. He validated my role as a mother, wife, daughter, and sister as no one else had. He also talked about love and how the key to life is to live as if living and loving were one and the same. Every minute, every second should be filled with love. And that love needs to be manifested through demonstrative acts. Mere words pale in comparisons to actions. This call to loving action was one of his key messages, and one that has guided my relationships and my daily interactions. It's not enough to say you love someone. You have to be kind to them, think about them and what makes them happy, and then do whatever you can to make that a reality. This is how he put it, and I believe this is one of his favorite quotes. Love is the active process of communicating together by demonstrative acts of your profound involvement in their welfare, such that you give them all encouragement, sustenance, support, and stimulation that they require for their unique fulfillment, that they can always count on you to be standing by, that you will never commit the supreme treason of letting them down when they're most in need of you, but you are always standing by when they're in need, and you will be there to help them become all that is good and loving that is within them as potentialities which you will encourage and nurture. I think he would have gotten along well with the 8th Principle group. He had a love for words. The Elephant Man was one of his most popular books and was also a well-received movie. And he wrote it as a testimony to a mother's love. John Merrick was the Victorian man who became known as the Elephant Man. He had a misshapen body. He was personable and loving, in spite of his misshapen head. Dr. Montagu was certain there had been a loving female present in Merrick's life as an infant, even though the official account of his life, written in 1922 by a physician who treated Merrick, said that he had been abandoned and treated unkindly since he was a toddler. Dr. Montagu wrote, quote, "For all we know of the development of human character, Merrick's personality could not have been what it was had he suffered from a lack of love during infancy and childhood. Either our theory and observation of human development are wrong, or Merrick would constitute an extraordinary exception to the rule. On the contrary, his case appears to confirm the rule, for no one could possibly have borne the torment of his later years and emerged from them as Merrick did had he not been fortified by the early experience of something more than a perfunctory love." Indeed, research in the 1980s showed that John Merrick had not been abandoned as an infant. His mother died when he was just shy of 11 years old, and he remembered her as a warm and beautiful woman. Children who are deprived of love often become aggressive and antisocial. And as a society, it's our duty to protect children who are neglected and mistreated, and to shower love on all the children in our lives. Love is the most important behavioral need that humans possess. And by loving and being loved, we are most fulfilled. When in doubt, side with love. Ashley and Marjorie Montagu told us they were motivated by love for their children when they helped found the Unitarian Church in Princeton, making Dr. Montagu one of our most famous and influential Unitarian Universalist ancestors. He was the first vice president of the Princeton congregation, so I follow in his illustrious footsteps. Let's take a break for our offertory and some wonderful music before I tell you Dr. Montagu's recipe for how to grow young. Please be as generous as you can with the offering. For those online or those here on your cell phone, there's a link to donate on the screen, in your order of service, in the description of the YouTube video, or on our website right under the description of today's service. Let this sacred time begin. Thank you, Don. Reading from Ashley Montagu. Quote, "What precisely are those traits of childhood behavior that are so valuable and tend to disappear gradually as human beings grow older? We have only to watch children or Miss Tizzy to see them plainly displayed. Curiosity is one of the most important. Imaginativeness, playfulness, open-mindedness, willingness to experiment, flexibility, humor, energy, receptiveness to new ideas, honesty, eagerness to learn, and perhaps the most pervasive and the most valuable of all, the need to love." And now, Ruth Daniel, one more time. She's going to be swinging on a star.
Would you like to swing on a star, carry moonbeams home in a jar, and be better off than you are? Or would you rather be a mule? A mule is an animal with long funny ears. He kicks up at anything he hears. His back is brawny and his spirit is weak. He's just plain stupid with a stubborn streak. And by the way, if you hate to go to school, you may grow up to be a mule. Or would you like to swing on a star, carry moonbeams home in a jar, and be better off than you are? Or would you rather be a fish? A fish won't do anything but swim in a brook. He can't write his name or read a book. His only thought is his only thought. though he's slippery, he still gets caught. But then if that sort of life is what you wish, you may grow up to be a fish, and all the monkeys aren't in the zoo. Every day you meet quite a few, so you see it's all up to you. You can be better than you are. You could be swinging on a star.
Brava, Ruth. On that fall morning when I met Dr. Montagu, he also discussed the possibilities of retaining childlike qualities like curiosity, open-mindedness, enthusiasm, sense of humor, and optimism into adulthood. By continually learning and developing competencies, we can be productive well into old age. In fact, he said we shouldn't really start to specialize until we're about 60. For most of us, that's when things really start to become clear and truths emerge which can contribute to society. The 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond can be very productive years, as many of us know. As a young mother who was facing a low point in my career, in large part because I felt split between work and family, I felt liberated by the knowledge that I could continue to grow while I raised my sons, and I'd still have time to make that major contribution to society I always dreamed of, after the children were on their own. Dr. Montagu gave me permission to devote myself to my sons and my husband first, and put my career on the back burner. He gave me time. Dr. Montagu undid a lot of the damage that had been inflicted by the conflicting views of the women's rights movement and the patriarchal society I grew up in. I didn't have to do it all. That certainly wasn't working very well for me. I could work part-time and then regain my momentum when the time was right. For now, I could follow my heart and be a nurturer. I cried with joy. He was so sure of his views, and he backed them up with such good evidence. He was a physical anthropologist, that I bought everything he said. After all, he was living proof of the ability to stay active as we aged. He encouraged me to give free rein to my curiosity about the world and beyond. Another of his favorite quotes was, "To be sure to wear out rather than rust out, to die young as late as possible." It's what I'd always felt was right, to stay youthful in spirit as our bodies age. I also identified with his ability to cross academic boundaries and explore whatever topic crossed his path. He was a genius, a living legend, and my greatest reward for years of youthly week meetings and dozens of weekends spent sleeping on church floors. I took his teachings to heart, and now that I'm well into my 60s, I still feel that I have many productive years ahead of us. After all, I have a great role model to emulate. And in fact, I have many more here in this congregation. Dr. Montagu has defined health at a minimum to be, quote, the ability to love, to work, to play, and to think soundly. Natural and healthy development would allow the characteristics of childhood to be nourished for the duration of one's lifetime. Human beings of all ages should be, quote, growing young by striving to always satisfy their basic behavioral needs, which appear so early in human life. Dr. Montagu hopes that human beings can become fulfilled children and adults instead of unfulfilled children and deteriorated children or adulterated adults. If society as a whole would recognize the basic needs of children, great improvements in communication and mutual understanding would occur among human beings of all ages. He suggests we become a child-centered society, where the contributions of children are recognized and valued, and where adults learn from children too. If you're so inclined, I'm going to repeat what Catherine said. I encourage you to volunteer in the children's program here at the church. You can work with the youngest ones in the nursery, the middle toddlers, the middle-aged kids, or you can work with the older youth. You can learn from your children as you take a turn at teaching. Dr. Montagu introduces the concept of neoteny in his book, Growing Young, to explain why these basic behavioral needs should be nurtured throughout life. Neoteny refers to the retention into adult life of those human traits associated with childhood, with fetuses, and even with the fetal and youthful traits of our own species. It's part of a process of evolution by which human development periods have been lengthened. Human development and growth must be recognized as an ongoing and continuing process. We grow all our lives. Natural and healthy development would allow the characteristics of childhood to be nourished for the duration of one's lifetime, not just for the so-called period of childhood. The barriers that we've created between childhood and adulthood obscure the true nature of human development and result in the failure to recognize the genius of childhood as a human common possession. Education should be lifelong and the nurturing means by which the wealth of humanity is realized in the fulfillment of the unique potentialities of each of its members. Here's what I would eat. Printed in your order, this is why you always label. If you're going to be giving a speak, always put your page numbers on it. Pro tip. Printed in your order of service is a list of Dr. Montagu's basic behavioral needs that people have. I encourage you to take this home and display it on your refrigerator. As we get older, we need to nurture each of these needs in ourselves, to rejuvenate ourselves. When we're out of sorts with ourselves and with others, we're well served to identify what needs we're lacking and take some positive action on our own behalf. Call an old friend and check in with them. Volunteer to teach here on Sunday mornings or teach adults in the community to read or speak English. Take a class, write a poem or a novel, join our choir, make a new friend. Attend one of the many group activities here at the church and share laughter and tears. As Dr. Montagu said to Johnny Carson, and anyone else who would listen, quote, "Even in a time of doubt and crisis, the optimist knows that the only tenable philosophy, even for a pessimist, is optimism. Optimism is creative in the sense that it often leads to solutions to difficult problems and discoveries that without it could not have been made. Find something to be enthusiastic about. Explore new cultures. Join a committee and make a contribution. I have several. Yeah. Exercise your sense of humor. Dance. And above all, love. Love yourself. Love others, love the earth, live as if to live and love were one and the same. Let love drive your actions, and you won't go wrong." The last time I saw Ashley Montagu was at his home in Princeton, or the last time I saw him at his home in Princeton. We went to visit him in the nursing home as well. Ashley and I danced a waltz together. His wife was no longer able to dance, and it was one of his favorite pastimes and mine, so we moved a few chairs and danced joyfully in his dining room, a memory I will always cherish. I want you to feel free to dance in your space, or if you have a partner with you today, dance. Feel free to dance as we sing our closing hymn appropriately. Let it be a dance. looked very energetic. It was lovely to see. Our closing words from Ashley Montagu. To love thy neighbor as thyself is not only good sound ethics, but perfectly good biology. It's not only a good text material for Sunday sermons, but the best of all principles by which to live one's life. I encourage you, as you make your way from the sanctuary, to greet a visitor or two if they have a name tag, a paste-on name tag. Ashley liked to say that a stranger was just a friend you haven't met yet. Who knows who your next best friend might be? We extinguish the chalice, these words. Extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace.